What an incredible grand final. Another amazing one to add to the list of what we've gotten recently to round out this year in Counter-Strike. Today, we had NAVI take on Eternal Fire to decide who would be the winner of ESL Pro League Season 20. A best of 5 between the current best team in the world and another that seems to be on a meteoric rise into the top 10. And I think it's safe to say that this final delivered. We got all 5 maps played. We had an amazing map veto to start off. There were heroics, theatrics, people yelling at each other, insane clutches all over the place, and at the end of it all, NAVI survived the onslaught of Eternal Fire to get this win, finally putting to bed the best of 5 demons for Alexi B and securing yet another trophy for this incredible year for this squad that many did not expect to do much of anything after Simple left. There's too much to get into, so let's not waste any more time. Before we get started, make sure you guys take a second, leave a like, leave a comment down below, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It helps out immensely in the YouTube algorithm. And also, just one more note, thank you guys for all the support on these EPL videos. They do take quite a lot of effort. I'm just a one-man show, and on weeks like this where we're doing the playoffs all week, means I'm grinding real hard to make sure that these recaps come out the same day as the action to keep you guys up to date with what's going on. So thank you so much for watching. Without any further ado, let's start talking about this epic grand final. And before we start talking about the action in the server, let's talk about what happened before the game even started, and that's this map veto, because it's one of the more interesting vetoes we've seen in quite a while. You see, the problem for Eternal Fire in this series is that their map pool pretty much overlaps with NAVI's exactly. Eternal Fire permaban Ancient every single time, and other than that, they love to play Mirage, Nuke, Dust 2, Inferno, Anubis, and of course a cheeky little bit of Vertigo here and there. So this creates 2 big problems. One, NAVI permaban Vertigo, so they're going to take that off the board right away. And the other is that NAVI are the best Mirage team in the world. Over the last 3 months, they've played it 12 times, they only lost it once, in double overtime, to Vitality, the other best Mirage team in the world. So if this was just a standard pick ban where Eternal Fire wanted to take Ancient off the board, NAVI would just take off Vertigo, they would pick Mirage, and this would be a very lopsided map pool for Eternal Fire. So even though they literally never play it, Eternal Fire made an interesting decision to ban Mirage and keep it out of this series, knowing full well that NAVI will fire back and pick Ancient. Because if you look at the rest of NAVI's map pool, you'll see an interesting dichotomy. Their map pool is split in half. There's half of the maps they play that they're very dominant on, and that's Mirage, Dust 2, and Ancient. And then the other half of the map pool, they are a lot more likely to give up games. Nuke, Inferno, Anubis, they are a lot more triable on those maps. So by getting rid of Mirage, even though you allow Ancient in, you get a 5-map series that's Nuke, Dust 2, Inferno, Ancient, and Anubis, and you have a lot more opportunity to try and take a map off NAVI than playing, say, Mirage, Nuke, Dust 2, Inferno, and then like an Anubis decider. This is some of the coolest stuff in Counter-Strike. We don't oftentimes get to see teams trying to abuse their vetoes in this way. In best of 3s, it just doesn't come up that often because you're able to get rid of the maps you don't like so easily, but in a best of 5, this is the perfect time to try and take those risks because you know you're playing an opponent that on paper has the advantage over you. And when you consider the fact that when this series played out, Eternal Fire still nearly beat NAVI on Ancient, that risk more than paid off. Alright, enough of that nerd shit. We don't care about stats in this household. We're here to talk about Counter-Strike. And on Nuke, Eternal Fire came out the gate playing some great Counter-Strike. They seemed very in control on the CT side, starting out with a 7-5 lead going into the second half. Then on the T side, they took care of work. Combined with the end of the first half, they won 7 straight rounds before NAVI could get something on the board. And overall, they took care of work. Nice, neat, a little 13-8 scoreline to take that 1-0 lead in the series. And what's interesting to me is that as much as NAVI are one of the best tactical teams in the world, you would think they would be much better at Nuke. And I think previously, like around the time of the Major, they were. But lately, they seem a lot more vulnerable on this map, and I'm not really sure what the reason is. There's definitely one thing you can point to right away, and that's that Emma and to some extent Bit seem to struggle individually on this map at times. Emma, especially on the CT side, I think he might need to just change it up, move to a different spot just to freshen things up a bit. He was stuck playing on top of the hut, playing the upper bomb site, and there were multiple times during the second half where like he would just get killed through smoke, like spraying through Squeaky and get killed back, or he'd get caught out just walking by. There were just a lot of rounds where he would die early and with little impact, and just to kind of hammer that point home, he only had 3 kills on the second half. He ends with 9 total, and he's been one of their best players throughout this tournament, so him going missing, leaving the upper bomb site vulnerable, that was really bad for them down the stretch. Here's a pretty good example of that, and both of these deaths are pretty unlucky, but they do matter in the long run. Here on round 16, these are going to start out, teammates are going to spread out. Bit's going to be pushing towards ramp to hold it. He's going to push into the trophy room a little bit and start taking some shots through smoke before he gets instantly headshot by Zontaras, so that's pretty unfortunate, giving ramp room completely to Eternal Fire. I like how Eternal Fire play this round because they slow down the pace immensely. They're going to wait in ramp, watching lower, held, trophy, and just stop for like almost 40 seconds before they bend it back and try and bring it back into an A hit through lobby. And this is where things start to get a little more unfortunate. Calyx is going to take care of JL by the squeaky door with the MAC-10. Alexi B is going to leap out of the vent right behind him, get a clutch double kill to equalize the advantage, and then things are going to stall out with the squeaky smoke. Woxer's in the back of squeaky just taking tap shots through. Emma's trying to walk by and get behind the other vent for cover and catches a stray right to the noggin. And that's just kind of how this CT half went for Emma. Very unfortunate. Overall, great protocols by Eternal Fire. They controlled the pace the entire time, so it makes sense they go up 1-0, and we move on to the second map, Anubis. And listen, there's no doubt that Emma made up for lost time here, because on Anubis, he went nuclear. Dropping a fat 30 bomb on Eternal Fire, which Navi needed every bit of, because this game went down to the... oh my god, excuse me. Wire. A 13-10 victory that Navi barely managed to scrape together at the end. And I do mean scrape together, because at one point Navi had a commanding lead. They were up 9-6 going into the 16th round, but the economy was by no means clean. Both of these teams have been investing a lot into all of these rounds, a lot of trade kills going on. So whoever wins this round is going to be able to break the economy and get the first real lead of this half. And after a whole lot of wasted time and faking like they're going to go B, Eternal Fire throw a bunch of utility in and start to rotate back to go mid to A. Meanwhile, Zontaras is going to lurk inside of the E-box, and he gets 3 kills here that basically break open the round. The problem here that you're going to see is that Navi takes this peak one at a time. As soon as Emma goes down here, Wonderful either needs to peek right away, like way sooner than he does, or drop back and double peek it with Alexi B. Instead, they pick the worst possible option, which is to give it enough time for Zontaras to get 3 individual 1v1s, and considering he's one of the best riflers in the world, he punished them for it, which snowballs into a round win for Eternal Fire. And unfortunately, the damage is deeper. Because the money's broken, Eternal Fire flipped this into 3 more rounds before Navi could put a stop to it. And honestly, it looked like Eternal Fire were going to run away with the momentum here and take this second map. It all came down to the most important round of the game, round 22, where Wonderful would step up and pretty much seal the game for Navi. With the save dom from last round, he goes down to E-box, takes Zontaras right away, getting their best player off of the board, and crucial intel that Eternal Fire is clearly leaning towards an A hit, at least for now. We flash over to Wakadia, who's trying to make his way into A main. Bit there with just a CZ and a Dream. He's going to be able to pick Wakadia cleanly, and Woxer's right behind him looking for the revenge shot, and Bit tags him, dinks him with the CZ before dropping to Woxic. If he had any other pistol, like a 5.7, he would have dropped Woxic in one shot. That's crazy. That's okay, everything's fine. Emma finds the pick on Major on the other side of the map. Wonderful finds the refrag onto Calyx in A main, leaving just Woxic trying to get by and save. They're going to try and pressure Woxic, but he gets 2 great op shots down in water to put him into a 2v1, trying to secure match point for his team. He's going to make a bunch of noise coming through mid. He's going to work his way into A. Wonderful's playing this perfectly, waiting his time, not pushing out, not giving Woxic the fight, and then guns him down with the USP while he's planting the bomb. Navi then snowballed the momentum to win the rest of the game, taking the clutch 13-11 victory, sending us to Ancient for the 3rd map of the series. So, all things considered, when you realize that Eternal Fire literally don't play this map, they did pretty good. They pushed Navi to the very limit, and they were literally on the cusp of victory, but were stopped at the hands of one man. One might say a legend, J Legend himself, who had a fantastic map alongside Bit. He was incredible on both sides. On the T side, he had this great 1v3 clutch early on that helped Navi spur some early momentum. And then on the CT side, playing the B anchor, he was spectacular. I will say though, this is where Navi definitely started to play some sloppy Counter-Strike, especially down the stretch on the second half. They were in very control of this map for almost all of it, culminating in an 11-7 lead on the CT side, where it looked like Eternal Fire simply didn't have the strategic depth to break through this NAVI defense. However, all of these rounds were messy, scrappy, close, so neither team has a very secure economy. Eternal Fire bet it all on an A push. They get absolutely meat grindered, but the only bright side out of this round, even though they concede match point, is they managed to kill 4 NAVI players, again leaving just JL alive, so NAVI still does not have much of an economy to speak of. However, Eternal Fire, you're also broke, so you gotta get this round on the board first, but then things get really interesting. Now, before we get on to Navi's blunder, we do have to call a spade a spade. WOXIC does invoke some devil magic on this next round, hitting 2 jumping Mach 10 dinks from the bottom of B ramp all the way into JL's skull on the B side, which is insane, and had that not happened, I don't think this round will go the way Eternal Fire wants it to. But after executing JL with devil magic, Wakadia and Zontaras cleaned up more picks with the Galils, which allowed Eternal Fire to take this crucial round back, and this is where the economic situation gets very weird for NAVI. NAVI are in a pickle, because they have 1 saved rifle, but they have literally no money to buy around it, and their money just got reset, so they know no matter what, they are looking at least 2 saves to get to their next buying round. Now here's the thing, right, you have 12-8 lead, you have 4 rounds to play with before overtime. What's the best course of action? Do you try and force down to 0 around this rifle, and then concede the next 2 saves if you lose? Or do you save now, play around the hero rifle, save the next round, and then get 2 strong buys to end the half? In my opinion, I don't see the purpose in trying to buy around this M4 here. You're not going to have enough resources no matter how you split this money up, and your odds of winning this round are super low. And by forcing here, you then have to save the next 2 rounds, so you're allowing Eternal Fire to get this to a 12-10 scoreline, and then by the time we get to that round, your buy is very thin. You don't have an op on Wonderful, you don't have full grenades. So, when in this round, Eternal Fire blows up the A site, gets the first 2 picks, and puts you into a 5v3 retake, you don't have enough resources to even consider attempting this, and you have to save because you'd be totally broke on the final round. Whereas if we rewind back and they chose not to force buy back with that M4 saved on Wonderful, they would have had 2 very decent buys on these rounds to contest Eternal Fire. And in my opinion, this game would have went to overtime had JL in the final round of regulation not had one of the best solo B holds of the year. He absolutely bailed out NAVI and prevented them from having to face an inevitable overtime, and I really do feel like this was just weirdly mismanaged economy by Alexi B and Blade, which is just not something you attribute to these 2 as leaders. In the end, does it really matter because they won the map? No. But it is interesting from a macro perspective, and if you're playing your own games, you have to keep in mind this ripple effect to what you do round to round. A buy now affects a buy in the future, so you need to weigh the pros and cons when you make these decisions, and here I think NAVI chose wrong, but in the end they were able to have individual brilliance bail them out. Unfortunately for the NAVI fans in the audience, there was nothing that could save them from the wrath of Eternal Fire on Inferno. It turns out they do burn brightest on this map because they dominated NAVI 13-4 before you could even blink, and NAVI simply didn't have any time to get involved in this game. Their CT side got run over, their T side got completely shut out, and Eternal Fire simply just played a better game. Now, before I do an abhorrent amount of glazing on WOXIC for how he played on this map, let's talk a little bit about the T-side struggles for NAVI. For whatever reason, they seemed unwilling to pursue B control on their T-half. They continued to press on A and push on Eternal Fire, and every time they ran into the A meat grinder, they did not come out the other side. And even when they did, they would struggle to finish out those rounds, like here, where it came down to Major and the one-on-one with the MP9. He gets underneath the crosshair and somehow wins the strafe battle for the 10-second defuse. Which has really gotta hurt for NAVI, because if they win this round, they break the Eternal Fire economy and maybe we might have a game on our hands. But they don't, and then the WOXIC show begins. I tweeted out in the middle of this that WOXIC was playing the game of his goddamn life, and I stand by it. He was incredible with the rifle and the op on the A defense. He was like this earlier in the tournament against Vitality. Something about the A side just produces great plays out of WOXIC, and him, Wakadia, Calyx, they were just such a great duo throughout this half. I can't give them enough praise. WOXIC was just incredible to close out this game. Which of course means the series must go on, and we are heading to the 5th and our deciding map, Dust 2. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Dust 2 was kind of a weird one, because I feel like Eternal Fire had just an incredibly odd T-side philosophy in the second half of this game. For whatever reason, pretty much every buy round down the later half of this game, Eternal Fire were hell-bent on running this 4A, 1 cat, split A push, where they would commit all of their utility to get long control and try and cross the A site, and they would never even think about rotating and going elsewhere. And listen, sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. The rounds it did work were predicated on heroics, and the rounds it didn't, it felt like they conceded the entire map to NAVI, allowed them to barrel in and constrict until it came down to a 4v4, 5v4, 5v5 fight to secure the A site, and that just feels a bit too random to deal with. And what's weirder is it feels like they played a more diverse style on the rounds where they had not much to work with. Like here on round 16, where they're going to work the mid control, and at first it doesn't seem like they're going to commit to pushing cat, they're just exploring a little bit, seeing what NAVI are up to, before committing to a much different look than their normal A split, where they use a lot more creative smokes, one down into CT, one on top of cat, to try and split up NAVI's sight lines, and then take care of the 2 players that are sitting on site. A lot different than a round like this, where it's just all in long A, right off the rip, all the nades, so many flashbangs. Emma gets a great double kill in the pit, but Calyx claws back the advantage with 2 kills of his own, putting us into a 3v3, and it's only like 20 seconds into the round, and Eternal Fire literally have nothing left but a couple of smokes, an HE, and a Molotov, which makes any kind of possible rotate very difficult, and ultimately they get bailed out by heroics like I was talking about. They rotate all the way through T-spawn, JL's creeping into the tunnels to play spoiler, Major gets a clutch shot on him to deny, giving Eternal Fire the green light to take the B site. They smoke outdoors, Bit plays spoiler with a nade in the doorway to catch out Calyx, leaving us in a 2v2 situation. And somehow, a round that NAVI should win like every single time comes down to Major, the in-game leader, in a 1v2 against Wonderful and Bit, and he pulls it off to keep them in the game. I mean, look at all this utility that gets thrown on round 19, courtesy of the Refrag demo viewer, link in the description. But look at all of that, dude. Just everything getting hauled over long A. It's crazy. And they concede so much map control to NAVI that eventually they were going to get burned. This is a cool strategy, but I feel like you can't use it that much because giving all this mid control, B control just allows NAVI to stack up when you try and cross the site. And sometimes the brawl would go their way, sometimes it wouldn't. This round, specifically, it didn't. The picks went the way of NAVI, they take an 11th round. On the next round, Eternal Fire do literally the same thing, where the round eventually boils down into a 3v3 post-plant situation. JL and Bit are flanking around through long A. Woxic somehow hits an insane fully flash shot to make it 3v2 before going down, leaving Major tucked on site, Wicadia pushing Wonderful on Cat, and JL coming up long really fast, and somehow Major wins an incredible 1v2 even though Wonderful dinks him with the USP on the push-up. Just crazy stuff. But eventually this forcing A was just going to come back to bite Eternal Fire, and with the scoreline 11-10, a chance to equalize and maybe take match point if NAVI were forced to save, Eternal Fire finally got burned by their own strategy. JL flies through the cross smoke for an insane triple kill, gutting the Eternal Fire attack before they can even plant the bomb, leaving Zontaras in an impossible situation to try and clutch up, giving NAVI championship point, which they would shortly convert the very next round. And they did it. Alexi B snaps a long-running best-of-5 streak of losses. A NAVI win yet another trophy this year. They continue their streak as the best team in the world. And for Eternal Fire, you cannot be disappointed in this result. You took the best team in Counter-Strike to the very limit, and you were a handful of rounds from getting one of the biggest upsets of the year and winning an insane Tier 1 tournament. This run from Eternal Fire was fantastic. I think they've made the statement that, hey, we're here, we're a top 10 team in the world, fear us. And they deserve to be respected going forward. I just hope they can maintain that form. Alright guys, this one took me a while to get done because there was so much to get into. I'm insanely tired, so we're going to keep things brief. These videos are powered by Advanced.gg. Check the link in the description. If you decide to make a purchase, you use my code LIONS10 at checkout for 10% off. Thank you to Advanced.gg. If you like Refrag, I work with them as well. I believe they are a great resource to help you improve at your game, and if you want to get a subscription, you can use my code LION15 for 15% off. Thank you to Refrag. Shout out to my channel members, Justin, Jesse, Furley, Bubblesj, Dr. Cocktor, Milan Berta for keeping the lights on. If you want to become a channel member, you can check the link in the description. While you're down there, follow me on twitch.tv/LionHeartZ. I stream Sunday through Friday at 8:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Oh, I want to go to bed. All right, peace.